If you think investors are going to read your business plan just because they like you, you're in for a rude awakening. Maybe they'll read the executive summary, but if you don't capture them there, you'll lose them forever. But don't worry, after this video, you'll know exactly what you need to do to write an executive summary that captivates readers and leaves them on their toes, excited to flip to the next page. Look, if you've just Googled how to write an executive summary and started filling in some run-of-the-mill template, do yourself a favor and stop. The last 50 summaries your hopeful investor looked at used that exact same format, and at least 49.8 of them ended up in the trash. Because if you're going to prove that your business is special or that your business plan is worth reading, then it starts with writing an executive summary that truly blows them away. And in this video, I'm not just going to tell you what you should write in your executive summary, but I'm going to explain how to write it in a way that makes readers excited to learn more. So if you're ready to make magic, stick 2 bunnies in a hat and follow me. Let's get it. Hey guys, I'm Mike Sims from ThinkLions, and on this episode of Startup Squared, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to write a pro-level executive summary that investors can't help but to pay attention to. I'm going to tell you why they are important, what needs to go in it, and at the end of the video, I'll share a few secret tips that we've used here at ThinkLions to write effective summaries for over 500 startups. Before we start, let's take a little journey. So imagine walking into a library, and for you young folks, a library is a place we used to go to back in my day to borrow books. You know, this is before e-readers and Kindles and Amazon, pretty ancient stuff. Anyways, you're at the library and you go over to the fiction section. There you find 500 books staring you in the face, begging for your attention. You're gonna read them all, right? No, you wouldn't. Instead, you'd find a book that looks interesting, flip it over, read the blurb on the back, and if you're captivated, you'll check it out, leaving the other 499 books to collect dust on the shelf. Well, your executive summary is just as important as that blurb on the back of a 300-page novel, and I'm going to show you how to make sure that your business plan is the one that gets checked out. Before I give you the steps to writing an executive summary, we should probably talk about why they exist and make sure you understand exactly when it is appropriate to use one. So basically, an executive summary gives an overview of a larger and more substantial document. Usually you'll find it at the beginning of a document, and it's used to summarize the major points that the document covers. If you've read up on executive summaries online, you'll probably get the sense that they are limited to one single page, but this isn't always the case. Your summary may be longer depending upon the length of the document that it's covering. If you turn to the experts, you may get a bit of conflicting information. According to Ashton University, an executive summary should be a maximum of 1 to 3 pages, but the Miami School of Business recommends a length equal to 5 to 10% of the length of the entire document. Depending upon which philosophy you follow, a 50-page document could have an executive summary with a length anywhere between 1 and 5 pages. Executive summaries can be used for many purposes, from business proposals to go-to-market strategies and more, but in this video, we'll specifically talk about executive summaries in the context of writing a business plan. So you've got your Microsoft Word or Google Docs open, and you've managed to put a title across the top that says Executive Summary, but now you have no idea what to do. Well, if you want to write the most impactful summary, there are 10 things that it should include. The first thing you want to do in your executive summary is to quickly set the stage by introducing the business opportunity. This means defining what problem exists and proving that there is a gap in the market, creating an opportunity that your team can fulfill. You see, successful businesses aren't the ones that make new fad products or those that get a lot of recognition from the media. Successful long-term businesses are those that solve problems and challenges that affect a substantial number of consumers. Immediately in the first paragraph, you want to lay a strong foundation by convincing readers that a real business opportunity exists. Next, you should describe how your startup solves these challenges. In other words, what product or service do you offer that makes life easier for your audience? Describe what your product is, how it works, and what makes it better than what the market has available to them already. In this section, you'll want to describe the specific features and attributes of your product and show what makes it special, but you want to do this in the briefest way possible. The third thing you should explain in your executive summary is your target market. In other words, you should quickly answer these two questions. First, what particular group of consumers do you target with your product or service? And when answering this question, you want to be able to separate consumer from customer and explain both of them if they differ. Take Legos for instance. Although children are their consumers, parents are their customers. And knowing this, they market towards parents, positioning themselves as a creative outlet with STEM benefits. But they market to children as the cool toy, knowing that they will beg their parents to buy it. And since the parents are already aware of the educational benefits of the product, it's more likely that they will. And that is how you turn stackable squares into $5 billion a year. The second question you want to ask is, what are the identifying traits of your market? This includes geographic traits like where they live or work, demographic traits like gender, age, and income level, and psychographic traits such as their internal attitudes or values. And if you've never heard this before, then I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but no business serves everyone. Even if you don't know this yet, investors do, and that's why it's super important that your executive summary explains exactly who is going to buy your product and why. Showing that there is a large market of individuals experiencing a specific problem and that you have a solution to that problem is great. But what investors really want to know is, how do you make money? In the next section of your summary, you should detail your business model. In short, a business model describes how your startup delivers value, and it explains how and how much a customer pays. So maybe you have a SaaS startup that uses a freemium or subscription model, or a marketplace app that uses a peer-to-peer business model, or maybe you sell products directly to the end customer using an e-commerce model or retail model. Investors want to know how your business will earn profit and then how they will earn a return. And their ability to earn a return on their investment is majorly dependent upon your business model. As I mentioned earlier, every business has a target market. And there's something else that every business has as well, and that's competition. And for that reason, the fifth thing that you should explain is your competitive landscape. Now, it isn't enough to just simply acknowledge that competition exists, but you should use your executive summary to describe your competitors, explain their position in the market, and detail your startup's competitive advantages. Knowing how you will separate yourself from other competitors is critical. For example, if you're a new social media platform going against a giant like Facebook, the only way you will succeed is if you are providing something that they aren't providing, or providing something that they are providing, but providing it better, cheaper, or faster. Angel investors and venture capitalists rarely invest in idea stage businesses. That's why the next thing your executive summary should mention is traction. If you're telling investors that your concept is the best one to invest in, then you'll need to show some type of proof. So whether you've pre-registered 100 users to your mobile app using a landing page, or made $100,000 in sales through your minimal viable product, you should be able to showcase some type of traction that demonstrates demand for your product and shows evidence that customers are willing to pay for it. For the most impact, describe what you've done so far and the results of your actions. Once you've explained past traction, then you can focus on upcoming milestones or major activities that you plan to complete over the next several months or over the next year. This timeline will prove to investors that you know what steps you need to take to reach your goals and objectives. Using all the information you've written so far, you should be able to create a believable financial model that showcases the potential of your business. In the next section of the executive summary, describe your financial projections. In other words, if you're able to meet your sales objectives, how much revenue will the business generate? How much will your expenses total up to? When will you break even? Use this section to show that your idea is profitable and that you have the research to back it up. But here's a word of caution. Investors want to see promising results, but they want to see realistic results. So create your financial projections using as much real data as possible. And if assumptions are necessary, then use assumptions that you can back up with data from reliable sources. Outside of the products and services section, arguably the most important part of the executive summary is the team section. The fact is, bad teams can run a great business right into the ground, and great teams can turn very average ideas into extraordinary businesses. The team section is the one that readers will focus most of their time on, and if they aren't convinced by this point, then really the rest is pointless. In this section, express who the founders are, what their backgrounds are, and why their experience is relevant to the business. Many times, newer startups haven't fully built their executive teams, and that's okay, but if that's the case, then you at least need to have a strong advisory board that has the experience that your executive team lacks. Finally, after all of this, you can mention your capital requirement or the amount of money that you're hoping to raise. But don't just add some random number here. Really think about how much you need to take your startup from where it is today and grow it to the next level. Explain why investment is necessary and how the funds will be used. Also, you should mention what type of funding you are looking for, whether it's an investment or a loan, and what you're offering in return for the capital, whether that's payback with interest, equity, convertible equity, or something else. So now you know what goes in your executive summary, but as the old saying goes, it's not really what you say, it's how you say it. So coming up, I'm going to give you 3 tips that we use here at ThinkLions to write executive summaries that have helped our clients raise millions of dollars in investment from angel investors and venture capitalists. But before we get there, if you're looking for tips and tutorials so that you can grow your startup exponentially, give this video a like, a subscribe, and ring the bell. Also, if you've been struggling to complete an executive summary for your startup's business plan, tell us what's holding you back in the comments below, and I'll personally give you some insight to help you move past your specific obstacle. Here at ThinkLions, we've worked with hundreds of founding teams, helping them navigate through the startup phase. And after writing so many executive summaries and working with so many investors, we know that it's not just the information that sells, it's the presentation of that information. Because dropping a bunch of words on the page, that's the easy part. But crafting a creative, personal, and impactful document, well, that takes a little more finesse. And if you made it this far in the video, you're in luck, because I'm going to give you a few secrets that will elevate your executive summary and leave your readers wanting more. The first tip is to write to your audience. Sometimes you may need to write several executive summaries so that you have different ones for different types of readers. Someone who is highly familiar with your industry may know certain terms or phrases, while someone not familiar may become confused with industry jargon. An experienced investor will likely understand certain business concepts that a friends and family investor may not be as comfortable with. Write to the reader in the words that they understand, in a way that excites them, and in a way that speaks to their specific goals and objectives. The second tip is make the first sentence count. First impressions mean everything, and readers will judge the entire document based solely upon the first line. If you can't catch them there, you might not have the opportunity to capture their interest again, because they simply may stop reading or just do a quick scan over the entire document. When you're writing your executive summary, you have to be purposeful in every paragraph, every sentence, and with every word. You want to write in a way that is exciting, persuasive, and compelling, and don't give them a moment to exit. Make it so interesting that they just can't pull away. Also, before you send it over to an investor, have your peers read it over. But don't send it to them over email. Have them read it right in front of you so you can see their reaction as they're reading it. Because friends are too nice, and even if it's the most boring thing they've ever read in their entire lives, most of them will tell you that it's great. So look at their body language and analyze their facial expressions as they're reading. If they're gripping onto every word like the climax of a top-selling novel, then you know that your executive summary is ready. The final secret is know your boundaries, because there's a very thin line between giving too much information and not giving enough information. And you want to provide the optimal amount so that they understand the story without giving away the entire plot. You want to write your executive summary with one goal, and that is to persuade them to read the rest of the document. So when I write executive summaries, I often think of movie trailers, because a good movie trailer shows you the highlights of the film so that you understand enough about the character, enough about their situation, and enough about the context without telling you the ending. They build you up and then they leave you with a cliffhanger that makes you desperately want to know how it ends. That's how you create a movie trailer, and that's how you create an executive summary. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.